Hey guys, Bloodsorrow here. And today's vid is going to be the Intro to Pharaoh PvP Guide Part 4. In this vid, I will be covering defensive gameplay. This will cover the spells, cooldowns, how to use them, and overall tips and tricks that can improve your defensive gameplay on your Pharaoh Druid. If you are looking for the offensive gameplay, which would be covering priority, rotation, stuff like that, that's actually Part 3, which I will put a link directly in the vid description for that video so you can check that one out as well. But without further ado, sit back, relax, and enjoy the vid. Alright guys, now as stated at the beginning, this is going to be covering the defensive gameplay. There are only a couple actual flat-out defensive spells on a Pharaoh Druid, but there are certain playstyles, mechanics, and whatnot that allow you to be more defensive, and I'll cover those more in depth and explain that at that point. However, the first thing we cover is just the flat-out defensive cooldowns, whether they're really short or really long, and then how do you utilize them to the best for yourself. First one I'm actually talking about is Bark Skin. Bark Skin is a minute cooldown, and the spell readout is the Druid Skin becomes tough as bark, and all damage taken is reduced by 20%, and your chance to be critically hit is reduced by 25%. While protected, damaging attacks will not cause spell casting delays. The spell is usable while stunned, frozen, or incapacitated, feared, or asleep. Usable in all forms, lasts 12 seconds. That was a mouthful, but there's a couple things that you could easily just read one at a time and understand. For starters, it's just a flat 20% damage, damage reduction, and then it's also got the crit. The crit, however, is not just on the spell, that is with the Glyph of Bark Skin, which is one of the major glyphs that I highly recommend you run. This makes you really surprisingly tanky. It doesn't make you uncrittable, you still can be crit, but it's a lot lower chance. It's not as good as a Hunter's Sacrifice because that guarantees no crit. With the spell, it is only a minute cooldown, so you can use it, but don't use it recklessly. So many times I will see a druid where like I'll go over and just stun them just to peel them off, and they'll pop Bark Skin like preemptively getting ready to take a lot of damage, which then usually me and my partners when I can fall back and then switch back to him again now that he doesn't have Bark Skin. However, don't waste time after switching off of the target because of the simple fact that it only is a minute cooldown. So if you make a kill attempt on another guy, push it, and then 50 seconds go by, his Bark Skin's going to be up pretty soon. The second part of it is, while protected, damaging attacks will not cause spellcast and delays, meaning if you have Bark Skin up and you have people on you, if you're casting like Healing Touch or something, which really this isn't as big of a thing for Pharaohs or Cyclones or whatnot, there's not going to be the spell pushback where your casting bar is going to be hit down little and little and little and slowing it down. However, that does not mean you're non-interruptible. Like, you can still get hard locked, you can still get stunned, but you're not going to have the spell pushback while casting a spell while being like physically hit. So that's Bark Skin. It's one where like usually if I pop that, I'm gonna be popping another defensive because as good as this is in this expansion, it's not good enough a lot of times. Like there are a number of times where I can just pop up Bark Skin if I'm running with a good healer and we have good communication. But often I will have to pop another defensive with this. So don't think that when you pop Bark Skin, you're guaranteed gonna live. It's not that it's good, but it's not that strong. There are other mechanics that you want to use on top of it sometimes or whatnot, which I'll explain next. The next big cooldown is Survival Instincts, and this is a 3-minute cooldown and reduces all damage taken by 50% for 12 seconds. This is castable in all forms as well, and this is one of our biggest cooldowns as in defensive. If you stack these two, you become really quite tanky. But that's the thing. Half the time, if you just pop a Bark Skin and then you're living through it, Bark Skin will be up again. So then when you pop Survival Instincts and say you're still getting hit like a truck, you can pop this as well. So if your healer's in like a long CC and he's like defensive, run away, live, you're gonna pop all these two spells a lot of times, usually right with each other, because that's a lot of damage decrease, and then you are a lot more tankier. And the buffs do last for a while. 12 seconds is a pretty long window, usually enough for a CC chain to get out or people to get frustrated enough where they're going to switch off of you, etc. So that's Survival Instincts. The next one we'll talk about is Might of Ursak. Might of Ursak is instant 3-minute cooldown and increases current and maximum health by 30% for 20 seconds. Activates Bear Form. Now, this is the only spell that actually shapeshifts you and causes you to go in bear form. Now, one thing though, guys, is like I said before, being in bear form does not make you tanky anymore because Blizzard has switched, or I'm sorry, split off the Guardian like defensive part of the tree into a whole different one instead of Feral. Going in bear does not make you tanky anymore. Like it's a little bit extra like armor maybe, but that's about it. It's not worth it, especially if you're running with a healer. This spell, I often see a lot of Ferals pop this, and then they stay in bear form running around. You should literally pop this and go back in cat form like 99% of the time, because while in cat form, you also have the glyph for glyph of cat form, which then you're getting healed 20% more. So if you pop that and you get the big health increase and go back in cat form, and then your healer's healing you on top of it, or you have a rejuve on yourself, it's gonna heal more. You're gonna be able to live a lot more as well. So realistically, if you watch any of my like feral vids or when I'm streaming on my feral, you will see me do like that and then go right back in cat form, because half the time it's like, oh, okay, good, like it's enough to get me topped off. Like you will stay in there enough to get topped off, and that's it. Like you should not be sitting in the bear form then for a very long time. Usually I'll just pop that, stay in it for like 5 to maybe 6 seconds, and then I'll be going back in cat form, because you will like you need to be number one on the offensive with the cat form, and then also you're losing a lot of like defensive help also from being a cat. Cat, you have number one more agility, so higher dodge chance. You've got the 20% more healing, and you can still pop these big defensive spells while in cat form and be fine. So usually my Versoc is just like used to kind of give yourself a little bit of a HP boost, and then at that point it's no big deal at that. Like you could go back into it. You'll mess around with it and find your play style in it, but my tip is do not just sit in bear form popping with my Versoc, because then unfortunately you're not going to be as tanky as you think you're going to be. You will still get hit like a truck. The next big cooldown we talk about is Heart of the Wild, which I've covered before in the talent ones. This is the one that you have a huge heal from. If you have any like concerns of how strong this heal is, I healed my partners yesterday 330,000 healing touch, crit, instant cast, and everything. Now, with Heart of the Wild, it is a 6-minute cooldown. It is a 90 talent, which, if you go back to the talent vid, I'll explain this really in depth. But this is, number one, a amazing defensive like talent for yourself and other people. The buff does last for 45 seconds. So don't be afraid to pop it, and then as you're damaging, be throwing out instant cast healing touches on yourself or your partners, because they're going to heal really, really strong right now. Like during this window, especially during this window, you're going to be healing for a lot. And coming out and doing a trank, LOS or whatnot, or to force a hard lock on you. If my like priest or something is afraid of a hard lock, he doesn't have inner focus, I will go ahead and pop my big heal and then do a trank, because if they do hard lock me, he gets a free cast then. So he'll be able to top off whoever is the low one or whatnot, and it does heal for a lot. A Heart of the Wild trank can crit heal like, I swear I've seen up to like 60, 70k, if not higher, and it's just devastating. So that is a spell that like you're gonna mess around with. Usually in arenas, it'll be used as like when your healer calls for it, because you don't want to blow this and then have them pop like pain suppression or a big defensive cooldown on top of it, because yours is a 6-minute cooldown. You don't want to just use that recklessly. So that's covering like the actual big cooldowns. There's a number of spells that are still usable to help your defensive gameplay, and I will go over those and explain like how they could apply to that. First one is Nature's Grasp. That's a instant cast 1-minute cooldown. While active, anytime a enemy strikes you, the caster will become afflicted by entangling roots. 1 charge, 45 seconds. It like lasts for 45 seconds. So when you put that up, you get a buff like this. This is really, really good on like kiting away from someone as when you're either low or you want to reset. Usually classes like Warriors, Rogues, DK, stuff like that, I will be able to pull them LOS and then pop that and keep running, and they will get the proc and be rooted LOS. Now, if they pop a trinket to get out of that, whatnot, you can then come out and either Nature Swiftness or Predatory Swiftness, Cyclone the target for a full 6 seconds and run away and fully reset. So this is a spell that's like, I don't see enough Pharaohs using it when it really is amazing, because putting a root on a target that needs to be mobile is really going to either stop their damage or make them much more susceptible to getting CC'd or killed altogether. So that's Nature's Grass. The next thing is, I don't know if it's necessarily defensive, but your Remove Corruption, Dispel. It's 8-second cooldown, and it's just no different than anything else, but ours only removes poison effects and curse effects. The main thing about this spell is, have it keybound and ready to be used on yourself and your healers. Well, yourself not as much of a big deal, but your healer, it's huge, because of the simple fact that if your healer gets hexed is the main thing, you know, where they get turned into a little frog by a shaman, that's a curse, and we can remove that spell. So many times I've played with healers where they're just going to trinket the hex instantly, or I'm like, dude, I would have got you, I would have got you. Just tell them, communicate, when you get CC'd by it, call it out, and I will instantly hit it. Mine's shift 7 for the keybind. So I could be just damaging, and then, oh, I'm hexed, I would come out and start spamming it, and then I dispel them instantly. However, this does take you out of form, so be ready to say, oh, dispel them, and then go right back into cat form on your own. So, I know it's not necessarily, oh, big cooldowns for defensive gameplay on your own, but however, it is a really good defensive spell to have ready, because a lot of times when they go to CC your healer, they're usually going for a kill on you. So, be good at dispelling those. The next, I guess, like, it could be used offense or defensive once again, but Mighty Bash, which is our 50-second cooldown stun. If you are in trouble, please stun your target. Stun whoever is doing a lot of pressure. If you have X is your focus, and you're hitting this, and it's like a Warlock lining up a Chaos Bolt, and you have Skull Bash on cooldown, don't be afraid to tab Mighty Bash him, and then go back to Skull. You have now stopped his casting, he is interrupted, and whatnot. Like, so many people will not use that spell. Like, they'll only try and save it for a CC and a healer or whatnot, which is just silly. You need to try and use your CCs as much as possible, and pretty much on, like, cooldown. I know it sounds silly because it's like, oh, you're just going to overlap CCs then. No, but what I'm trying to emphasize is you need to use your CCs. That is one of the strongest points on the Pharaoh right now. Not only really high damage, but the fact that they can do so much CC. And in next patch, they're taking away some of the CC, so use it now while you can. Now, what CC are they taking away, you're probably asking? That's the Predatory Swiftness stuff, which I will cover that in depth after this next spell. Next one I'm going to talk about is Typhoon. Typhoon is nothing different. You've seen the talent before. It's the little like wave you push out and it knocks people back. The reason this could be used as defensive, it number one pushes people away, number two slows them, and can knock them off of like the bridge, stuff like that. So get good at positioning yourself for it, but fair warning, this spell has a like delay of when it actually applies the pushback and effect to your targets. So you might have it perfectly lined up, hit it, and then they'll run a little bit more and then get hit by it, and they'll get stuck on the lip of the bridge or land on the pillar, and you're just going to want to rage. It will happen. You'll get used to it, and you'll learn to work around it. So that's covering Typhoon. It's one of those where you're going to mess around with it and find out what your, like, I guess your playstyle or how comfortable you are using that spell. Like, for me, it took me a little bit to get used to, but now I got it down. It's no big deal for me. The next, I guess, defensive spells, even though they're not really, but they're just heals. We only have like 3 heals that we can really use as a Pharaoh Druid: Healing Touch, Rejuvenation, and Tranquility. Tranquility is the 8-minute cooldown where you just channel it like this, which usually when you pop this, it's screaming, interrupt me, interrupt me, interrupt me, because you are healing for a lot, especially if you have Heart of the Wild up. So it then puts a 3-stack of a hot that's healing for like 15k, which, yeah, it's a lot of healing. If they don't interrupt you, it's going to cost them dearly. The next big one is Healing Touch, which our Healing Touch, if we just cast it like out of form, 66k, which is not that great, but it's definitely nothing to be overlooked. When you have Heart of the Wild up and Nature Swiftness into it, it's going to create heal upwards of 300k in Arena. So that's full health for some people. Like, you're just going to, you can completely change the outlook of a game because of that one cooldown and that one spell. Rejuvenation is then also something that is highly, highly overlooked. Number one, notice this. It says heals the target for 10,632 and an additional 10,000 every 3 seconds for 11.53 seconds. This is not just a hot where it's like, oh, I put up a hot bulb. This also heals instantly. Right there, I heal 27k, and then it puts the hot on. When you have Heart of the Wild up, spam rejuvenation sometimes. Like, you do it 3 times in a row, it's going to heal a lot. And then the hot itself. So if your partner's at like 3/4 health and you don't want to take the chance of casting a healing touch, because number one, healing touch is a long cast. It's 2.4 seconds, and it can get interrupted. Rejuve cannot. So that's one of those things where it's like, know how to use it. Often, if I like have to run LS to heal myself, I'm gonna do like healing touch, rejuve, and go back in cat form, because when you have rejuve up and you go into cat form, it heals more. 13k, and now it's healing 15.7. So when the crit heals, it does more as well. So those are covering the heals. And the next part I'm actually going to talk about is the predatory swiftness and how to use these heals accordingly. Now, some of you might be asking, what is Predatory Swiftness? And Predatory Swiftness is just a feral passive, which is your finishing moves have a 20% chance per combo point to make your next Cyclone, Entangling Roots, Healing Touch, Hibernate, or Rebirth become instant cast, free, and castable in all forms. So, number 1, no mana. Number 2, it's instant cast. And number 3, you can do it in all forms. Out of form, you can do it bear, cat, travel, doesn't matter. Now, this is a buff that lasts for 8 seconds onto you once you do actually get it. And you do not have to only do 5 combo points to get the 100% chance of it happening. So for starters, I'll just show you what the buff looks like real quick. So I'm going to use a finisher, which means you could use Savage Roar, Maim, Ferocious Bite, or Rip, and you're going to get the buff. So watch, I'm going to use Savage Roar, and then you'll see I'll get the buff up here, which will look like a little, like, Echiaki, if you remember from Barons back in the day. It's that little tiger buff. So, right there. And then I can instant heal myself. So, 110,000 heal. Right there, no problem. Now, this spell doesn't have a cooldown on when you can get the buff. So, right now, again, if I got, say I was in Arena, I got another 5 combo points and used another finisher, I can heal myself again. Just like that. So you heal yourself for, you can either use it for healing or CCing. Now, CCing, fair warning, our Cyclone, when used, has a 20-second cooldown in Feral, compared to Restos, you know, it can just spam it, whatnot, stuff like that. Now, this is a little bit of a setback, but it just means pay attention to your cooldowns, roughly. Like, I know it's going to be immune, but, okay, if I Cyclone right there, it's immune, but then you see I have a 20-second cooldown. So I won't be able to Cyclone again, but I will be able to use Roots, Healing Touches, and whatnot. A lot of people will notice then, oh, Cyclone's on cooldown, I'm not going to use anything, blah, blah, blah. And they're not going to pay attention, where they easily could just Healing Touch themselves, their partner, whatnot. It doesn't, it's not going to cost you any mana, it's not going to bring you out of form. Use that spell. Use that buff. If you don't, you're not playing your Feral to your max potential. Because either you or your partner is just going to be missing some health, or you could also do 2 other CCs. You can root a target and you can hibernate it. Hibernate is only usable on like druids and forms, like anything that's like an animal. So druids and forms, I believe you're allowed to use it on shamans and ghost wolf. This is great against other ferals. Make sure you are using Hibernate on the other ferals, because if their healer is not on top of the spells, he's going to sit that full CC, and that's going to really suck, because it's unstoppable. Like, it's a CC that lasts for 8 seconds. So, it's really good to use. Hunter's Pets, I know you should be able to use them, but they're going to break out with BM and whatnot. It's not even really worth it at that point. Another thing that most people overlook is, if I've been CCing a healer and we're not hitting a warrior, say it's against like KFC, and we're just training a hunter and we got the healer CC'd, and then I'm sitting on the hunter, root the warrior, root classes that can get rooted, like where it's really going to be effective against them. It's instant cast, and that doesn't have a cooldown. So you could actually stack them and then DR them or whatever, but it's not going to be that big of a deal, because of the simple fact that you are CCing and you are helping to keep a target off as you're doing damage. A lot of times, if stuff is in range of you, it is crazy strong when you're just like doing all this damage and then I'm CCing at the same time, like, oh, Cyclone, and then back on my target without any. Or half the time, if you're using focus frames or target arena macros, it's not going to even break your target. Like, you're not going to notice any damage with this. It's just amazingly strong. So, that's covering, as in the Predatory Swiftness. That is something where I could talk about for hours, guys. Tips and tricks and how to use it, etc. Blah, blah, blah. Which, when I go over my macros, which will be in the vid coming out in a couple days after this one's up, I will have an in-depth look on how to use my macros. I have on my druid, where is it, right here? I have a lot of feral macros, as you can see. I will cover these in depth, explain how they work, why they work for me, and how to utilize them to your best. But that'll be at that point. As in Predatory Swiftness, get used to using the buff. If you have a like add-on that you want to use to see the buff, etc., whether it's like a power aura or just a debuff filter with the actual buff, you could put that up on your screen so then it's easier for you to keep track of. But use those spells. Use it for CC. Use it for healing. Like if I'm doing max CC or something's DR'd or whatnot, I have macros to heal my two partners, and if they're low, I'm just gonna be or like taking any damage roughly. So if they're like 75%, which is still a healthy health pool, and I've got a free Predatory Swiftness, I'm gonna say, oh, you need to heal, run over, and then I'd hit my keybind for him, which would heal him, which they're not here, won't work, but I could just heal myself then. So 80k. This is what makes you surprisingly tanky when fighting someone 1v1, is make sure you use your Predatory Swiftness for yourself over and over and over. Also, if they trinket something stupid, you could Cyclone them and reset the fight very easily then. So that's just something like, as in defensive, you gotta know how to use it properly or use it to the most. I think that's one of the reasons I've been more successful, especially in Kata on my Feral, because of the simple fact that I loved the CC on a Feral and I understood how to use it, and it's not that complex, guys. You mess around with it, get used to it, get used to your range on your spells for your CC, and you will feel like a god. You'll have like, oh, one target cyclone, one rooted, and you'll be killing another, and just be like, yep, game over. So just practice around with that type of stuff, and you will learn it that much more and become that much more better at using it. And especially now, if they are going to nerf it, utilize it now before they nerf it to the ground. So yeah, especially with the cyclone part. But yeah, that's gonna like wrap up the cooldown parts, defensive parts of pretty much everything, guys. Once again, the major cooldowns you can be using are Bark Skin, Survival Instincts, and Might of Ursak. Which, remember again, Might of Ursak, you pop it and go into bear form. So I got the extra health. Oh, they healed me up, and I go cat. And you saw I still had the extra health for a little bit before it disappeared. It is a little bit of a delay, so it can make you more tanky up front, especially where it pretty much looks like a 30k or 30% heal, which realistically not, but it'll be enough for people to back off, especially if you pop other defenses on top of it. Bark Skin and Survival Instincts you can pop in cat form, which is a lot of tankiness right there. So you can pop both of those. One's a 3-minute, one's a 1-minute. Don't forget to use Nature's Grasp when you need to kite, which is obviously one of the best things to do. And Heart of the Wild, don't be afraid to use it for big healing to yourself. That was a 200k non-crit heal. And then Tranquility is healing 67k each tick. Like, it's a lot of healing. A lot of healing. So let's cover those. Mighty Bash, sometimes it's not only meant for CC, it's meant for also to help yourself live and run away. Typhoon, use it accordingly. Practice, get good at reaction time, how you're going to knock people off of bridges, whatnot, stuff like that. And, of course, Predatory Swiftness. Practice, 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 practice. Use every buff possible. Notice it. Pay attention to it. Know that when you use the spells that you're going to have that buff up. Like, even if you have only a couple combo points, you can still get it. If I'm running away and I need to, like, it's do or die and I need either to get a Cyclone off now or whatnot, I will Savage Roar with 3 combo points, and as you saw, I got Predatory Swiftness. And then I could heal myself or CC again. So it's something you need to pay attention to when actually getting the buff. It's a risk because I only had a 60% chance to get it, but sometimes RNG is in your favor. So that's gonna like wrap it up for this part, guys, and I will see you in the end part of the video. Alright guys, now it's gonna wrap up this vid. Real quick before I let you go, just a couple things. First thing is, if you felt I may have missed something in this vid or any of the Intro to Feral PvP Guide series, please comment below and let me know. I'm more than happy to go back, check a video, see if I said something wrong, or if I may have just missed something altogether. It does happen. These were a little bit longer videos because ferals are very complex, but I'd be more than happy to go ahead and settle any questions you guys might have. So that's the first thing. The second thing is Twitter and streaming. First thing is, I am streaming a lot more, and I'm going to be streaming a lot more in the future. This holiday weekend was a little bit busy, so I didn't stream as much as I would have liked to, but I will be streaming once again throughout this week. My arenas, BGs, whatnot, stuff with fans, etc. I'm leveling up alts. I need to grind gear, and I'm always down for battlegrounds or arenas. So be sure to stop by the stream and say hello. I'll put a link directly below for that. And then Twitter. I am now on Twitter, especially a lot more than Facebook. I will be tweeting when I'm uploading vids, questions I might have for you guys, stream when I'm streaming news, and of course giveaways. So please follow the Twitter page below as well. And on that note, if you did enjoy this video, please like, favorite, and subscribe. I greatly appreciate it. And this is Bloodsorrow saying thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the BGs.